Hello, friends. There are many mysterious things in the world that science cannot explain. For example, science tells us that wild animals are guided by their instincts and aren't capable of experiencing emotions. However, there are many stories out there that testify on the contrary. Such stories show that predators aren't just capable of experiencing emotions and helping their fellow animals in difficult times, but they're also capable of helping people, even though people often hunt them. An elderly woman lived with her 11-year-old grandson in a small village somewhere in the Carpathian Mountains in Ukraine. Unfortunately, the boy's parents died in a car crash when he was little. Thus, the boy was raised by his grandmother. She shared her boundless love and all her knowledge with her only grandson. The woman spent almost her entire life surrounded by wild forests, and therefore, she taught the boy to love nature and treat animals with respect. Moreover, she knew all about the forest herbs and their healing properties. One day, the elderly woman suddenly fell ill. She felt dizzy and lost consciousness. When the grandson came home from school, he found his grandmother lying on the ground, unable to get up. Despite her protests, the boy called the doctor. The neighbors helped the boy carry his grandma inside the house. The doctor examined the patient and concluded that she needed to get medical treatment at the hospital. He couldn't treat her at home because the woman needed to get a full checkup with various tests to get diagnosed. However, the woman flat out refused to leave her house. She didn't want to leave the boy alone. Instead, the next morning, she prepared a list of herbs she needed and sent her grandson into the forest to collect them. The boy was ready to do anything to help his grandmother, so he quickly got ready and went off. He took a flask of water and a couple sandwiches, in case it took him a while to find the right herbs. About 3 hours later, the boy reached the place where he'd often picked berries and herbs with his grandmother before. He was very focused on collecting all the herbs from the list because he wanted to help his grandma get better soon. However, being engrossed in his search, the young man forgot that one must always carefully watch their step in the forest. The boy heard the branches under him suddenly crackle, and then he fell down. After recovering from the initial shock, the boy realized that he had fallen into a trap. The hole was deep. The boy desperately tried to climb out of it, but his attempts were futile. There was nothing to hold on to. The earth was solid, as if it was made of stone, and impossible to dig into. Therefore, it was impossible to get out of the hole. The boy started screaming desperately, but no one responded. He even lost his voice from all the screaming and the stress. It got dark, and the boy fell asleep. Fortunately, it was a hot summer night, so it was only slightly cold in the pit. Moreover, the boy even had his jacket with him, which he took in case he needed to stay late in the forest. Thus, the boy wasn't cold at all. Morning came, but nothing changed. No matter how loud the boy screamed, no one heard him. Time seemed to stand still for the kid, and he had no strength left to continue calling for help. He quickly ran out of food, but he did a great job rationing his water. Thus, another day had passed. In the evening, the boy heard some rustling coming from above. He looked up hoping to see a human face there, but instead, there was someone's red muzzle. It was a fox. The animal looked at the boy for a long time and then ran off. Was it really time to say goodbye to his life? At night, a piece of raw fish fell into the pit. The fox stood nearby and watched the boy quickly devour the treat, even though the dish was raw. The next morning, the predator brought some more food for the boy. He didn't mind eating raw fish, but he was very worried that he'd run out of water. Finally, at around noon, the boy heard footsteps, and then he saw 2 men. The grandmother got very worried when the boy didn't come home at night. She was very angry with herself for sending her grandson into the forest alone. However, since she couldn't walk, there was nothing she could do about it. And only a day later, when the doctor came to check up on her, did they start searching for the boy. The forest was very large, and it wasn't easy to find the kid. Fortunately, the fox led the men to the pit. The experienced hunters immediately pulled the boy out. They gave him some water so that he could quickly come to his senses. But then, The boy saw the fox that was feeding him lying under a net on the ground. The men explained that it was the fox who lured them to this part of the forest. Otherwise, they might have not looked there at all. Since the animal was behaving strangely, as if playing tag with the men, they decided to follow it. Only when the fox approached the pit did they throw the net over it. The boy told the hunters how the fox had saved his life and asked them to let the animal go. The hunters were surprised, but did not argue. The fox really did behave strangely. It seemed that it deliberately led the men to the pit so they could save the boy from certain death. The boy's grandmother was extremely happy to see her grandson, but she wasn't surprised by what the fox did. She seemed to know that animals are much smarter than people think they are, and that they're capable of doing good. The boy who shared this story on social media claims that it was all true, and we have no reason not to believe him. Do you think it's possible for an animal to save a person? Do you think they can feel compassion? Have you ever experienced anything like this when an animal helped you? Well, that's all for today, friends. If you like this amazing story, please give it a thumbs up and share the video with your friends. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.